Excuse me. First, Dr. Boulevard, new business. You're last.
Good evening. Welcome to the Lowell Conservation Commission meeting of Wednesday, September 26, 2018. We'll call the meeting to order. Our first order of business is a continued enforcement order. Stephen DeRosa, 146-148 Alma Street, paving within land subject to flooding, regulatory floodway, and within 100 feet of Beaver Brook. I've been asked by the authorities here that everyone sign in tonight. They're having trouble keeping their records and knowing who's here. Thank you. And then could you introduce yourself, please?
Good evening, I'm Stephen Erickson from North Environmental Services. We've gone through the plan and gone through the zoning regulations, and it appears that we can't meet the zoning. So we did some research to see about variances and whatever, and that doesn't appear to be a viable option at this time. So at this point, we're gonna take it out. We're gonna remove the pavement that's in there and put it back to its natural grade and think of a plan B if we can come up with one.
Okay. I think that's probably a good solution for the site. It is a very sensitive area, as the whole neighborhood is aware. And I would hope that could be stabilized as soon as possible after the pavement does come out. And I appreciate your work on that, and your, I know the solution was hard to come by, and I doubted it could be come by, and I appreciate that Mr. DeRosa is willing to remedy the situation there and remove the pavement. This would be the pavement on the right side of the house as you're looking at it. And Would he be leaving a front walk, a width of front walk that's paved?
We'll take out the new pavement that wasn't there before.
Okay,
We
but
can-
of
we
course
can
it
leave-
all looks new now.
Yeah, but we know what was there before.
Okay, I would think you'd need a walk up to the front door at least to that to remain there. But certainly everything to the right of that, I believe, was not there in
Yeah.
recent years.
We'll use the GIS and make sure that what was there before and replace just what was there previously.
Okay, so what's the time frame for that removal, do you know?
We're starting to look for contractors right now, and everybody seems to be backed up, so it'll be a couple of weeks anyhow. But as soon as we can get a decent contractor, then we'll cut the pavement out, scrape it down to a natural grade, and loam and seed. We want to be able to get loam and seed in there soon, so we don't want to wait too long either.
Yeah, well, it's possible you could get some stabilization of some kind of vegetation there this fall if it gets in pretty quickly here.
Absolutely, we don't want to leave it bare over the winter.
Yeah. I appreciate the outcome of this. Anyone on the board have comments on the? No. Okay. As soon as the work is done, could you notify the office and we'll go out and take a look?
Great, we'll do that.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you very much. Next on our agenda is also a continued notice of intent. DSM Realty, 875 East Street, Tewksbury, DEP number 2060786. The location is 677 and 705 Pawtucket Boulevard, and this notice of intent is filed for the construction of a 71,000 square foot market basket supermarket and a 12,000 square foot retail space at 677 Pawtucket Boulevard with landscaping, parking, stormwater management, and utility improvements. And the project includes reconstruction of the parking lot for the restaurant at 705 Pawtucket Boulevard as well. And both properties contain land within the 100-year floodplain, bordering land subject to flooding of the Merrimack River. Welcome. Have you signed in? I think I saw you doing that.
I have, yeah. Gregory Curtis. Good evening, members of the Conservation Commission. Greg Curtis from Goldman and Curtis and Lowell. I'm working with the Market Basket people and also with Jim Lamp from RMD. And tonight, Eric Gerard is here, and also Paul Chisholm, who worked on the peer review. This is a continuation of the meeting that we had from 8/22, in which it was decided at that time that a peer review would be very helpful to the board. I guess the results came in, the letters dated the 17th, and the Eric Gerard and Jim Lamp met with city officials, I think Christine McCall, yesterday, so it's been kind of tight time frame, but I think they've met also with Paul at that time, and they've kind of consolidated what they think they need to do. So not being an expert and not being an engineer, I'm going to turn it over to Eric Gerard and also, I guess, to Paul to discuss what they came up with and what the timetable is on how they can adjust possibly the plans for the conservation.
Okay, we did just get these documents just recently.
Yeah, it's the same way.
Two of them today, and so we're not completely up to speed on this.
Right.
But luckily, the numbers match up from one to the other, and I was able to kind of get an idea.
I think it's important that they had the meeting with the city officials, and all parties hopefully have come to a consensus, and conservation will do the same, but there's always a possibility that, you know, it could be voted on, and then if it has to be added to the final order of conditions, or if a plan needs to be changed slightly, that could be done on behalf of all parties cooperating to try to move the process along. But I'll leave that up to the board and to Eric Gerard.
Okay, I was pleased that so many of the recommendations seem to have been acceptable to the market basket side of things, and I think I look at it as a sort of an extra set of insurance
Yeah, exactly.
details that perhaps they weren't necessary, but by adding them, you have a little better project, I think.
Always good to have another set of eyes looking at the plan and
Right.
come to a conclusion that hopefully is going to work. We know it's a difficult area. It's always going to be that way, but doing the best we can to make sure that it's going to be safe and also it's going to be good for the environment that we have. I'll turn it over to Eric at this time.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Eric Gerard, civil engineer with VHB. As Greg said, this is the continuation, and we have been doing a lot of work with the city, having meetings with the city yesterday, peer review consultant, just to go over the letters that we received, and that also, I know it's out of the jurisdiction of this board, but also with the traffic folks and the traffic peer review, as we have a planning board hearing next week as well. So as we're kind of getting all our comments for all the disciplines, Conservation Commission, peer review, city, and then the traffic peer review, the goal is to come back with a cohesive set of plans, next week and be able to have a final set that can be approved. In incorporating the comments that K&A had come up with, we agree with a lot of the comments. A lot of them are very technical, detailed, related to, a lot of them for, riprap sizing that we would tackle a lot on, a construction level. And so we can certainly add that detail. We're fine with that, getting that in for the permit set. And just to fall back on a couple of the comments, I don't know how you'd like to do it, if you just want to go through the letter, or I can just kind of hit some of the main points, primarily relating to the flood storage.
How would you like to do it? We have our expert here.
No. I would say 6 through 15 were addressed. They were pretty simple, and your answers addressed them. So maybe if you want to just go maybe through 1 through 5, that would be probably sufficient. Because I think it's just, again, like you said, sizing a riprap, just being more specific on the plans, which I trust that you guys will address, so.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we're certainly, work with DPW and the peer reviewer again, look at the final plans with the conditions of approval on it, items like that. So that's fine. So the first comment relating to the border and land subject to flooding, incremental storage was provided for elevations 152 to 155. And then it appears that there are areas on the ground surface below 152 which do not appear to have been considered. We recommend that the applicant's consultant provide the compensatory analysis for all impacted areas. So, yep, under the existing, on our site right now, there are some depressions on the property, and that is a challenge stormwater-wise. So when those areas fill up, under our existing condition stormwater model, they're acting as its own little detention basin, infiltrating and then filling up and then overtopping. The areas around our limit of work and in the edges of the property, elevation 152.8 is kind of where, if the river is going to flood, that's when it's going to come into our site. So we do have a couple spots that are, elevation 149, but they're not hydraulically connected. So if the river floods up to elevation 152, it's never going to reach into elevation 149 because it's not going to go up and over to get into that area. So discussing that yesterday, one of the recommendations was, well, what is that overall volume that you are kind of displacing? So when it does overtop at 155, that, that adequate storage is, in that area for the entire property. So we took a look at that elevation below 152.8 all the way down to our lowest elevation, and we are providing over, it's 90,000 additional cubic feet, 91.5, as compared to the existing conditions. And where we're getting that volume is primarily in the larger basins that we have to keep the bottoms of those flat.
So is that 91.5 an addition, because I think the original plan, there was like an additional 50,000?
Correct, so we have
That's below.
So we have a total of, it's like 149,000 cubic feet total. So above, the 152.8, there's an additional,
It was like
55,
50,000 something.
correct.
Okay,
Yep.
so you're even adding more, which is great.
correct.
Okay, yep.
The next comment is relating to the test pits. And yeah, we had the test pit logs. They were inadvertently left out of the report that I believe the city received. We have forwarded those along. We sent them over to K&A at the meeting and gave a copy to Pat today as well. So those test pits are included.
And nothing crazy was found in the logs, correct? I think we asked you guys that.
With the narrative, right?
Correct, yeah, no, there's nothing going on with those are just the field logs that identify it. There's a Frimpter adjustment method in there that actually increases the elevations that they found in the field. So that, that was all included with the original design for the
Okay.
plans that you have seen.
Yep, okay.
The next question is why were varying infiltration values selected for the pre and post-development modeling at the same site? So that under the existing conditions, we were looking at the existing ground surface, and over time, that top layer of soil, it gets kind of sediment soil. So we use the lower infiltration rate. We looked at it using the higher infiltration rate of what the parent material is on the very bottom, where our proposed basins are going to get excavated out to. Using those higher infiltration rates, it doesn't impact our existing conditions and proposed model. It doesn't impact our proposed stormwater management design. Mm-hmm. What it does is for DP3, which is the design point that goes to the easterly abutter, the parking lot for the Brunswick bowling lanes. Mm-hmm. It reduces our existing peak rate slightly. But under proposed conditions, we're not sending any water there, so it's not impacting our final design. So we're okay with updating those infiltration values.
Yeah, this next one, I've never heard of a mounding analysis.
Okay, so
So you're building like a little fort, that's what my coworkers told me.
so yeah, pretty
Around, like a wall, like a moat.
so there's a infiltration basin.
Yeah.
And the purpose of the infiltration basin is you want the water to infiltrate into the ground. What Mass DEP requires is if groundwater is within 4 feet, so they allow you to do it within 2 feet to put your basin, but if you're within 4 feet, they want to see either that you're not fully attenuating the 10-year storm event, so your lowest orifice is allowing that water to come out, or you provide a mounding analysis to prove that as the water's coming in and going down, that existing groundwater elevation is not coming up as that water, so the water elevation comes up underneath the mound because you're throwing so much in there.
Okay.
Is to make sure that your water elevation does not
So it almost like
impact the bottom.
you're not creating like perched water conditions?
Correct.
Got it.
Yeah, exactly. Similar to a perch, I guess. It's not technically perch, but yeah, I think it creates a mound because the water's coming.
Oh, this is all underground?
It's all underground, and the purpose of the study is to prove that the mound does not come into the basin, so that the water, there won't be standing water in the basin for the groundwater mound that comes up.
Basically, you still have adequate storage within the aquifer, right? Through
Adequate-
the infiltration.
Correct, adequate storage within that aquifer. It looks at the aquifers, the depth of the aquifer, where the groundwater is, and values for saturated hydraulic conductivity, the horizontal conductivity.
Acidity and all that.
And USGS has some spreadsheets on modeling that and some other programs. So talking yesterday, it was recommended that we do that. So we've preliminarily looked at it, and everything is checking out okay on that. We will wrap up that final report, and we can get it in. The next question.
4.
The freeboard maintained during larger frequency storm events. So on our ponds, we don't really have a great opportunity to provide, a standard 1 foot of freeboard.
What's freeboard?
The freeboard is when you have a basin, your berm, and whatever that highest elevation is, sometimes I like to see an extra foot on top for above your highest water surface elevation of that pond. Just as kind of in the unlikely event that if it did overtop, it's kind of like a belt and suspenders kind of design feature that they can recommend. Our basins, they're relatively shallow, so with our challenge with the groundwater and then our floodplain, we're sheeting everything off into these detention basins, which are effectively, they're the 2 foot deep depressions to pond the water. We really can't get a 1 foot freeboard in those. And those detention basins anyways are being used for a pre-treatment prior to them overflowing into or discharging into our infiltration basins. And then those infiltration basins put the water in the ground and then discharge it out with our overflow structure. If these basins ever do back up, the water is going to be ponding on site within the parking field, which then will allow it to recede back in during the 100-year storm event. It comes up a little bit into the site, but it's not going to impact safe travel. We're talking a couple inches on the road, depth-wise, on the
Parking lot?
in the parking lot.
Yeah.
For a short area.
Okay.
So increase in that freeboard is going to start impacting flood storage.
Yeah, depth of your basin,
In the
yeah.
hydraulically connecting of that flood storage to make sure that we're not impacting other properties.
Yeah.
And just a quick question, those detention ponds, like you said, they serve as primary treatment, or initial treatment, I should say?
Pre-treatment, correct.
So I would think you don't have a large residence time of standing water in them, one would think, right? I mean,
Excuse me, I missed
you
that.
wouldn't have a long residence time with the water standing in there, because that's not your final treatment.
Correct. Yeah, all our basins, they're, designed to discharge within the 72 hours.
Got it.
As required. And yes, those detention basins do have an orifice at the bottom that allows those fully drain.
Yeah, and then the last one's the riprap, which,
Yep.
I mean, unless anyone else on the board wants him to go through the rest, but it's just like comment how they addressed it.
I think you're good.
Yeah, I checked off, and it seems that from that point on,
Yeah.
they pretty much decided to modify it in that regard, so, or add to the plan, or whatever was needed. Okay. Does anyone else on the board have comments of this report?
So I just want to say thank you to K&A for reviewing this so quickly and thoroughly. One thing that K&A did do was they looked into, on the report, what the residents were concerned about, which was the dam. And they basically found that there was minimal impact to this site of 0.01 feet. So I know that was a concern of one of the residents last meeting, so that's great. And then these just all seem like simple fixes. And I just wanted to thank also VHB and Market Basket for making these comments obviously a priority, because I know you guys just got them recently and dropped everything to meet with the city of Lowell yesterday. So, and I heard that meeting was went very well. So thank you for making this a priority.
Thank you.
And I just want to let you know, just because we peer reviewed you doesn't mean you did a great job, because I think you guys did a great job the first time as well, so,
It's all part of the, it's great. Thank
yep.
you.
Okay. Mr. Chisholm, have anything to add here?
Okay, good evening. My name is Paul Chisholm. I'm a project manager for Keach Nordstrom. As you all know, our firm was hired to review the project in terms of stormwater, compensatory storage, as well as a cursory review of the backwater report prepared by Green International. Just to kind of echo some of what's already been said already tonight, we did have a good discussion yesterday. I think a lot of what they need to do is just adding detail to the plan, and based on what we talked about yesterday, I have no doubt that that'll happen on the next round of revision. So from here, our company will just review, I guess, any changes and provide any further comments as necessary at that point. But beyond that, if anyone else has any questions, I know Christine mentioned that there were some abutters that would probably like to discuss some of our findings. We're here tonight to do that as well. So I'll get out of the way and come back as needed.
Thank you, and I do appreciate you doing that so quickly. I didn't think it was possible, but there you go. Okay, any more questions from the board about the reports? And I think we will have probably some comments or questions later from the public, but if we can go on to the test pits, I think we just, or I just, and I think most everybody else, just got these results sent to us this afternoon about maybe 2 hours ago. I haven't really had a chance myself to look them over. I was kind of interested in the soil types. It's a typical alluvial soil, I guess, sandy, and that seems to be a good thing for your project, that it's not something that's going to hold water for a long time. Is that what you found mostly throughout that?
Correct. There is a fill layer on top, and that fill layer will need to come out. We don't want to be, building infiltration basins on fill or anything like that. So on the southeasterly side, it's minimal, but as you get to the northwest, and I think it's evident if you're out there, there's a mound out there that is a fill layer, so that we'd want to get that out, get down to that good parent material for the infiltration, and that's what will be called for.
And then will you be filling back up with a more suitable material?
Oh, absolutely, yes. In the infiltration basins, it will be either that, an existing material that's out there, or something similar to like a Title V sand or something, just to make sure that we're hitting those infiltration rates, or at least being conservative on it.
So is it just a matter of moving material around, or will you have to bring in material to make the base?
It should be mostly moving material around. We will be excavating down. Originally, I thought we were going to be right on the surface, but it looks like we are going to be cutting down probably about 1.5 feet. So that will get some of that material out of the way. But there will be some that will get to move, but there might be other areas on the site that we can, make sure that there is that good granular sand that we can bring back in.
Now, were you surprised by these results, or does this change your design at all, knowing what's here?
So these were done back in May, or I believe it was May. So these weren't, these were all included in our last round of, in our submittal package as far as the results. They just weren't included in the report. It was just an oversight. Initially, when we started this process, looking at the site over a year ago, we didn't think groundwater was as high, so these results did modify our initial designs. For when you looked at our conceptual plan hearing that we had with Planning Board, we had a couple different stormwater features, so this kind of modified that to comply with that groundwater elevation. But yeah, it's great that the soils are well infiltrating soils.
This whole area was where the old city wells were, just to the west of this site, and probably very similar to that soil up there that, well, it supplied the city with water for a good number of years until they finally got too much population to keep going on with it. I feel like I'd like to spend more time on the, looking over this soil report. I don't know if anyone else feels the same way, but,
Why are they on a Form 11? Just curious.
There's the soil suitability forms. That's just what our soil evaluators use, because they usually do it for Title V.
Gotcha, okay.
So, yeah, that's what we do for stormwater as well.
Okay, and then.
Just to characterize each layer.
Characterize it all. Okay, and last time you were here, I had asked about MIPA and DEP, and you had said that you had addressed all their comments, and I think DEP had no comments, correct?
Correct, yep.
So DEP has reviewed all of this and has 0 comments.
There's nothing been posted that I've seen.
Yeah.
In MIPA, yeah, we have our final certificate.
So, okay.
In my recollection from what you said earlier, I mean, basically, these logs, since it's not new information, it just wasn't included in the package, and it simply, corroborates what's already in the narrative of the report that we've seen.
Correct.
Correct, yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, there's only, one of them had organic on the top, which I'm assuming you're getting rid of. It was like organic, then fill. That would be the only log that would really concern me, but you're getting rid of it, so.
Yep.
So I guess to your question, Louisa, I mean, I, for one, don't feel like I don't feel like I need to review those logs any more than,
okay. Any questions from the other board members of any type?
I also want to note that you did these test pits in May, when the groundwater was high, so.
Correct. And they were all adjusted when there's fill material, they like to look at surrounding wells, the Frimpter method, to adjust them based on how the wells in the area are reacting. And that also, so we increased a lot of the results up almost 2 feet from what they found in the field.
Is the fill material going to be removed from below where the building is going as well, or is that suitable material to put a building on?
I'm not sure what the foundation system would be comprised of. If it's going to be a spread footing type system, I would assume that fill material needs to come out. If they go with some other system like a pile system, then you could probably leave it. I'm not sure. They're not at that stage as far as structural design of the footings.
No.
There is a preliminary geotech report that does recommend various footing designs. I don't recall them off the top of my head, but that was done in 2016, and that is included in the stormwater report. And that has a lot of borings in there as well.
Now, does it have any validity that like a volume or a weight of a building displaces water in soil conditions like that?
I'm not positive. I can't comment on that. As far as pushing it out, it can consolidate like a silty material, but with the well draining material that we have, I don't see that being an issue.
maybe.
So you're essentially keeping all of your water on your site, except in like an extreme flooding situation?
Yep. For the most, yep, exactly. So the regulations want you to recharge as much as you can, and that's what we're doing.
Well then, and then in an extreme flooding situation, they're adding 150,000 cubic feet, so we'd actually be flooding them out. Yeah,
The water be going onto the site?
onto them. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
giving us more storage.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just with respect to the weight of the building, I mean, you'd be doing compressibility studies on before you put the building down, and I guess you wouldn't see, one wouldn't think you would see a change in storage. In other words, you're not compressing the void spaces in the underlying soil matrix, correct? Generally speaking.
I would, yes,
Yeah.
I tend to agree with that, but I'm not a geotech / hydro.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, I think At this point, we do have abutters here that are curious as to these latest reports, probably. And I can open it up to questions from abutters if there's anyone that has a comment or a concern.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Everybody's using abbreviations, so I put PCC. John Hamblett, 495 Varnum Avenue, on behalf of the Pawtucketville Citizens Council, and I stand before you very confused. I have the latest documentation dated September 17th that I've got questions about to Christine McCall from Keach Nordstrom Associates, and you're talking about something else. So what are you talking about?
We're talking about the memo that VHB wrote back addressing all those comments.
And when did we receive that?
It was dated September 26th.
That's today. What time?
There's not a time on it. What happened was the city of Lowell met with these folks and the peer reviews yesterday.
So we have a public hearing, but the public has not received the documentation. Is that what I can conclude?
Is it on the website, Patrick, yet?
And when did it go on the website?
It was on the website pretty late, so it was like 5 o'clock.
So documentation was put on a website at 5 o'clock this evening. The 677-705 appears in 3 places on the city website, and I will give you my American Express Gold Card if you can find any documentation right now on the site, because I can't. You can look under Conservation Commission, you can look under Planning Board, look under Zoning Board, and look at 677, sometimes it's 677 space 705, 677-705, but you won't be able to find it. So, first of all, I'm sure that Market Basket would like to see this approved with conditions. We're asking that it be continued. We have not seen any documentation, and I don't check at 5 o'clock at night. Also, here's a copy of the 218 meeting schedule, and it says that for the September 26th meeting, all documentation must be in by September 5th. Now, I know that some latitude is taken, but that's September 5th, not the same day at 5 o'clock. So I'm, again, requesting the continuation. In my email to Christine McCall, we had some questions about the September 17th KNA report, and I'm not exactly sure if I want to go forward with that, because you're saying there's another document that may have answered some of them.
What they actually did, John, is they took the questions in that September 17th document and wrote a response to each one of them, and that's what we just walked through right now.
Right.
And I think from the commission's point of view, you know, the first 5 were the most critical, the rest were more, I would call, kind of administrative, additional detail, and that's what we were just talking about, to make sure that, you know, we were understanding, you know, the outcome from the meeting that they had with the city yesterday, and it was kind of memorialized in this letter, as I understand it.
I must say that at least a few of us were going back and forth with the documents at the time that the meeting started tonight, so I understand your frustration, because we also didn't get the documents in a timely manner.
Having said that, I do have one question for either KNA, who wrote the report, or Commissioner Biedron, because there is something I don't understand from the September 17th.
Sure.
So we had a city council flood subcommittee meeting with the author of the backwater study, and it's my understanding that something different was said at that meeting that is concluded in this memo, and so I'm trying to get the minutes of that meeting. But here's what I didn't understand. On page 2, where it says essentially water elevation, so it's the beginning of the second paragraph, is not anticipated to change under normal flow conditions. it's anticipated that water surface elevation will rise by 1 foot during floods. And then a little bit later down in that paragraph, it talks about something that's 150 feet upstream from Townsend Avenue, which is not relevant to us. And it says the new dam will cause a 1/100th foot increase. How can the water be a foot higher, but the water only goes up 1/100th of a foot? I didn't understand.
I'm gonna let K&A answer that. I'm assuming he's talking about the water at the dam and saying that it's gonna be 0.01 feet at the site,
So the water's a foot higher at the dam, but it's not a foot higher?
considering the fact that the site's that far away from the dam, correct? But I'm gonna let
It
K&A.
says at
Okay,
this
well-
location.
That was one of my questions.
That's how I read it.
Yeah, I didn't understand it.
How do you want to handle it? I mean, you want to let him respond to the question, then if there's another question, we can, rather than,
No, you can finish.
Well, no, that's primarily the question I have. The other things you say are being addressed in some kind of report that we didn't receive, so I'm not going to comment
Yeah,
on
like
that.
a comment response memo from VHB. Yeah.
what a response.
But yeah, Paul, if you could respond, that's how I read it, so.
I didn't actually understand what you said, so I'll listen harder.
Sure. So again, our firm performed a cursory review of the Green International report. Essentially, that report studied the backwater effect of the Merrimack River and the new dam on the Clay Pit Brook, okay? What they determined was they ran a couple of analysis, detailed engineering analysis of the Clay Pit Brook during essentially a 100-year flood of the Clay Pit Brook. And they looked at it from two different angles. They looked at it from an angle of current condition at the time, which was the dam as it was. And they also looked at it as the water being a foot higher at the dam level, which is where it was proposed to be at the time of the report was written. I presume that that hasn't changed, but, you know, hard to say. So they have table 4 in their report here, which has a couple of cross sections going from Varnum Ave all the way down to Pawtucket Boulevard. And in that, they, like I said, they analyzed both conditions, one with the water being at the current level, one being at the water, with the water level being a foot higher. And at the closest cross section to the site here, which is listed as 150 feet upstream of Townsend Ave, scenario 1 yielded a 100-year elevation of the water at 98.33. Scenario 2, so again, scenario 2 with the water being a foot higher at the dam, 98.34. So 98.33 to 98.34. So an increase of 0.01 feet. In the conclusion section of the report, they noted that essentially there's not much of an effect from the dam on the Clay Pit Brook beyond the bridge at Pawtucket Boulevard. So, you know, you can kind of see that if you look at this table, you can kind of see that it just, the further upstream you go, the less of an effect that it has.
Right, okay.
I hope let me know if I...
I'm going to just try and repeat this, so there's a culvert that runs Clay Pit Brook into the Merrimack River, and at some point in time it's underwater. So it really doesn't matter how much the Merrimack River is over the top of that culvert, no more water is going to run in. Doesn't matter if the Merrimack River is a foot over that culvert or 3 feet over the culvert. So even though the Merrimack River might be a foot higher, it might be a little bit more pressure or whatever. You guys.
It doesn't affect the groundwater. We're talking about groundwater.
Oh, okay.
So like what he said, like what I just said, that foot difference was the 2 studies that were done at the dam. So whether it's this elevation or a foot higher, it's saying that back at the Market Basket site, the groundwater may change by 0.01 feet.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
No, sorry.
If I may.
Just let,
That
that
is the surface water
The
at
surface
that
water, okay.
location. So it's reasonable to conclude, in my opinion, that it would have the same effect,
Of
you know,
groundwater.
of a negligible effect on the groundwater.
Okay.
gotcha. But the flood water is a foot higher.
It's not a foot higher necessarily. It's my understanding from the report is that the clay pit brook will flood when there's increased flows, not necessarily flooding. Water elevation at the dam under normal conditions will be at the same elevation that it is prior to the reconstruction of the dam. Under increased flows, they'll allow that water to rise up 1 foot until that drops back down to the normal level that it's normally at. When this report really looked at the flooding of the clay pit brook. And how that dam, because during a time of the flood of the clay pit brook, that water, they're assuming that water would be up that foot already. And so it doesn't look at, how do I want to say this? It really just, it proves, I guess, that based on the modeling that they have, that you're not going to have an effect upstream of the Pawtucket Boulevard as a result of not necessarily...
Clay pit.
Correct.
Right. This study was only on clay pit.
Correct. That is
Is it, in layman's terms, is it fair to say that additional foot of storage, basically that height, the additional storage that would not create lateral spreading further out areas upstream that would create additional flooding?
That's essentially what it's saying.
I'm trying to say it in layman's terms.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Lovely. So what did you just say?
So if they're talking about...
I got to go back and repeat this and explain it, so...
No, I
Anything you
totally...
can do to help.
I'm trying to... I'm not a civil engineer, I'm environmental, so I need to kind of talk about it in layman's terms too.
Good,
And
that
so,
I would understand.
So what I'm understanding is that additional 1 foot height of the dam, allowing the water level to come up that 1 foot higher, further upstream, it's not going to allow it to spread, it's not going to create an effect where it's going to spread out further upstream and creating additional flooding above and beyond what would normally be expected at the lower foot storage of the dam. Does that make sense?
No, not at all. I'm going to exercise an option the city has given me. It says, after you present your questions and concerns at a public hearing, if the commission shares those questions and concerns, it's possible the commission could continue the petition and invite the peer reviewer to come back to a second meeting so we could ask them questions. I would love to ask some more questions, and I know there's some other people in Pawtucketville that would like to too. So I'd make a second request for a continuation so that, and I think you have to include something in your order or whatever it is, because we weren't allowed to talk to him because it wasn't in the original order. You told the peer reviewer to look at this, and this. You didn't say talk to Pawtucketville. So now we're asking to you to add, would you please talk to Pawtucketville and answer their questions? I think that's what she's saying. It is possible if the commission could continue the petition and invite the peer reviewer to come back to a second meeting. I think.
That's an email from who?
Christine.
Christine McCall.
Yeah, I feel that there's a lot here that's going to be changed on the plan, and I would feel pretty comfortable in continuing this and actually looking at a revised plan. I think there wasn't a whole lot that the commission was concerned about as far as the changes, but I would like a chance to go over this as people in the abutters in the neighborhood probably would like a chance to look at this and formulate questions if there are any to be formulated. It's very difficult. I was feeling for the people that drive in and ride the train in, and some of these documents just came in late this afternoon. And it's, we got a peer reviewer because we didn't feel comfortable dealing with everything on our own. And now, we haven't had time to digest before we are supposed to come up with a recommendation here or an order. So with the request of the proponent, I would like to continue this until our next meeting date, which would be the second Wednesday of October, I believe.
I mean, The only question I have to the board is, this letter came out on the 17th, so everybody had the
We
letter.
have that letter.
The
but
letter that was the peer
we did not
review.
we did not get it on the 17th. We got it fairly recently, Monday, I believe I got it.
Was it emailed? I think I
Got
received
it
it
by
back.
email on Monday.
And it was reviewed, and then
There
peer
was
reviewer
I knew there was a meet-
and the engineer met with the city to go over it, and we just went through a list of
Right.
possible concerns you had tonight, other than you were talking about some soil issues. It seemed like we
Right.
addressed.
It's not just myself that I'm asking for continuance. We've been requested by some people who haven't had a chance to see even all the documents yet.
So,
I think that's,
I
you've
think-
been working on this for a year, and it seems like rushing it to save 2 weeks isn't going to buy you anything, really.
let me ask a question first. Besides getting the Conservation Commission's sign off on this, what other pending permits, reviews?
Going to planning board on Monday, and we're hopefully
Okay.
going to resolve planning board on Monday.
I mean, I'm certainly empathetic of not wanting to have the uncertainty and getting into this never-ending do loop of questions, responses, questions, responses. I, for one, feel like we're getting near the end of the question response, and I think what we're trying to do as a commission is balance our role and obviously the public's concern. And yeah, I certainly just got this as well. I mean, I was one of the folks that just looked at this. I'm generally fine with the responses,
Right.
but I think it would probably buy the applicant a lot of goodwill to just allow one more meeting to kind of, just give that comfort level that, we've dotted the i's, crossed the t's. What I would ask the Pawtucketville Coalition would be, if you could provide your comments ahead of time and not ask them at the 11th hour at the meeting. I would hope that I'm just saying, moving forward, we're in the same situation as you folks. We just got this stuff. It's not like we've been having this for weeks, and we're volunteers. No, all I'm saying is that for the next meeting, that's all I'm saying, next meeting, and so we're not doing it real time. In advance of the next meeting, get us the question, so that these officers.
Certainly, if there's some way to set up a meeting with the concerned neighbors outside of a hearing situation,
I think-
then certainly that would go quickly through the process.
The neighbors have the ability to look at the documents that were provided, and if they want to address them with the engineer, they certainly can. But to set up meetings, we had a meeting back in July with the Pawtucketville Residents Association, explained to them exactly what we were
These
doing.
documents were not available in
No,
July.
I'm saying these particular documents and the responses to the peer review, we only received them as you did
Right.
tonight. So it makes sense to have them digest those, and if we come
What
back
I'm-
in 2 weeks, and at that point, hopefully, everybody's satisfied with reviewing.
Agreed.
And if they want to ask us questions or send us an email, or the engineer can answer a question, that's fine. But we would like to wrap this
So
up.
you would propose that we continue
If
until the next meeting?
we have, majority of the board feels it's the best interest of the public, then that's fine. We can continue it for the 2 weeks. It would be when, October
10th,
Right.
October 10th,
10?
And
second Wednesday.
And with that, I think it's fair to have an expectation on both sides. If we use the 10th as kind of the date to kind of confirm the back and forth that may take place between tonight and the 10th, so that everyone has a comfort level, that to me would be a great outcome. I'm not looking to continue this for another 2 or 3 iterations, to find,
I think we've answered a lot of the questions. I
Agreed.
think
I
you
completely
people are
agree.
satisfied. I think the question we have is, we didn't get the information in a timely manner. Unfortunately, it was a lot of work, and we are where we're at. We tried to address a lot of the concerns. I think the board feels comfortable with a lot of the issues, but if there's one or two that Pawtucketville Residents Association, if they have their own way of going about it, that's fine. But
I think the project is a much better project tonight than it was
sure.
2 weeks
No,
ago, so.
I agree with you, and I think the extra set of eyes looking at it and the conversation, but we made every attempt under the time frame we had to meet with the city, sit down with it. Everybody seems to be on the same page. if anybody else wants to,
Yeah.
look into those comments that were made, that's fine. We come back here on the 10th, and hopefully we can wrap it up.
Sometimes it's just a little time to digest things that.
That's fine.
Yeah.
So I just I want to set some precedents here. So I feel like we are accommodating you guys and we're trying to accommodate everyone. Everything's due tonight for the next 2 weeks. So I would like to accommodate everyone in the fact that we're going to waive that, because I don't want you guys coming back next meeting saying that VHB didn't have updated plans for you to review. So this is like a free-for-all here, and I just want to make that known, because I don't want you guys coming back saying, or you need to hurry up, Chip, and give us comments, because if you want to see something modified on their plan, I'm going to say they're allowed to submit a plan the day before next meeting, and you're going to have to make it a priority like they've made this a priority with the city. Because we can't say that you didn't have ample enough time to review stuff now in 2 weeks. So I just want to, this is a very gray area right now, and I want to
I
make
think
sure.
what we need to do, in my opinion, is any comments that the public wants to make or the Pawtuckettville Association needs to go through the city. I don't think they need to directly contact us. I think they need to go through the city, go through the proper channels. We will address it either with the board or with the planning department. And, this sending emails, Mr. Hamlet sends emails out, and, that's not the way this operates. He's a one-man situation over there, the head of that association, that's fine. But I think those issues and concerns he may have should go directly to the city, and if they want to contact us, they can contact us.
I think that's
That's
a fair
a better way
request.
of approaching it.
Okay, so.
It's consistent with
could we-
typical public
Well, we
comment.
need to, Chip, we need to know what's the communication, I guess, what's going on as well. So if you have a list of questions, if you want to piggyback on this memo, because that's probably the cleanest way to do it. And then we can also see that, so we're not surprised the night of the meeting. And then hopefully they'll have time to address it. But I just want to let you know, if they're addressing it the day or two before, then we're not going to have the conversation that they didn't get things in 2 weeks before the meeting. We're going to accommodate that this is a last minute kind of thing.
I don't think anyone needs 2 weeks before the meeting, but certainly 2 hours isn't enough time.
Yeah.
You know what Chip, are you okay with that? We just can't keep holding this up, because I'm telling you right now, how they addressed everything was pretty thorough.
Agreed.
So,
I get it.
yeah.
I didn't come in with any last-minute information. I didn't get any information. I had questions prepared. I already sent an email to the city, and so while I understand what you're saying, and I certainly won't do a last-minute trick, that's just not something that we have done in the past, and we won't do it now.
Okay.
So we have a motion then to,
I'll offer a motion to continue this hearing at the request of the applicant.
I'll second.
motion made and seconded to continue. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much for.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
I'm fairly confident the next meeting will
Yeah.
resolve any unresolved issues.
Thank everyone for
Thank
their
you.
hard work on this.
Thank you.
Okay, our next on the agenda is a request for determination of applicability filed by Robert Muldoon on behalf of the, now I don't know the actual name of the, is it Wingate or?
Windmere,
Wingate.
or is it Wingate? Let me
Win- Okay, Wingate, I have it here, Wingate Healthcare, 500 Wentworth Avenue. It's a request for repaving of a portion of asphalt, and this is not the entire parking lot. I understand it's, you can tell us the dimensions again. I have them here somewhere. Could you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, thank you very much for having me. My name is Bob Muldoon. I'm a local paving contractor, and I'm looking to do a small section of Windmere nursing home in the back. It's on the southerly side of the building. I'm going to use the existing grade. There's going to be no changes. There's no handicap ramps. It's just a road that goes up through the back, and it's in pretty bad shape. It's a safety hazard now, and it's a one-day job.
Okay, I understand that this is probably an area that floods occasionally and probably does a job on the pavement because of it. I know they've had flooding in the past here. Our concern, of course, is that you don't add any more fill to the floodplain or the land subject to flooding, and that would mean that you probably would be removing that and replacing at the same grade.
Correct. Yes, I will.
Okay, so what's the thickness of that pavement when you put it down normally?
Excuse me?
How thick is that asphalt when you put it down?
Is it
How thick?
thick? It's an inch and a half a binder, inch and a half a top.
So 3 inches total.
Inches, correct. And that's
And-
after it's compressed, it's probably about an inch below that.
And that's what's there now, is approximately 3 inches of pavement?
Say that again?
That's what's out there now, is 3 inches, but it's
Correct,
cracked or whatever, and in bad shape, you said?
Yes.
So you are going to take up what's there and keep the same elevations?
That's right.
That would be the
same
requirement. I think this is a pretty straightforward request, although it's a very sensitive area. And I think we would want to be sure that the elevations of that pavement stayed the same as they are right now, that it didn't add any additional material. And it is approximately 14 feet by 75 feet,
Correct.
according to the application here.
That's what it is, yes. It's approximately 14 by 75.
Okay, so is this basically parking spaces, or is this a travel lane?
It's a travel lane.
Oh, it is. Okay, do you have a way of marking that elevation so that it comes out the same, or how do you do that?
I mean, I can go with the grade it's there now. I mean, I can see what it is. I've been doing it 43 years. It's only going to go one way, and we're going to bring it up exactly the same as it is right now.
Are you like taking 2 inches off and putting 2 inches back? Or something?
Excuse me?
Are you like taking 2 inches off and putting 2 inches back?
An inch and a half.
Inch and a half,
and
okay.
an inch and a half.
Yeah, so it's good.
Binder in.
You're good.
Do you do that with a machine, or do you take that up kind of by hand?
No, we take it up with a machine.
Okay,
Yeah, we don't do much by hand anymore.
hard work.
Plus, we put it down with a machine, too.
Okay, questions from the board?
I've driven by that on the fire truck, actually, and yeah, it's terrible condition, so I understand why you need it done.
Any more concerns?
Nope.
Okay, I feel this can probably be done under without a notice of intent. I don't know how other...
Yeah, I'll make a motion to issue a -3 determination.
Seconded.
Okay, motion made and seconded for a -3. Do we want to put any conditions there about the elevations?
No, I mean,
I
I think
think
if
we're
you're,
good.
yeah, if you're taking 1.5 inches and putting it back, then I think you're good. Yep.
Yes,
Those machines are pretty accurate.
right. Yes, it is, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We've just, a -3 isn't a bad thing. We've just
Thank you very
approved the
much.
work. When will this work be done?
When will it be done?
Yeah,
Someday next week. I don't know, probably we'll start it maybe Tuesday or Wednesday, depending
okay.
on the weather.
All right, Patrick will have that form for you.
I'll be in touch with Patrick to let him know.
Have a good night.
Thank you. And
Thank
thanks for
you.
Thank you.
I'm all set.
Couple more things.
Good night.
Night. Next on our agenda, we have a request for a certificate of compliance. Francisco Rosa for DEP file number 206-0552, and this is at 2080 Way. This is part of a large project that's been going on in stages for a number of years, done by Residents First Development Corporation. The order was issued in 2004 for the residential subdivision in bordering land subject to flooding, the 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands, and the bordering vegetated wetland near the Concord River. This is a single home, and it's only a request for a single lot in the subdivision for purposes of selling the home. Are you Mr. Rosa? No. Are you here for this project? No. Was anyone coming in, Patrick? Or?
I thought so, but I don't know what happened, to be honest.
And this may be just more of a formality to kind of take care of any sort of legal complications with an individual lot, because I know in the memo from the city that you folks point out that, this particular parcel is outside of any jurisdictional area under the wetlands protection.
Right.
This is fairly, Patrick even sent us pictures today.
I saw
This
that.
is fairly far from the resource areas. It's not really a nice way to do single lots. It kind of messes up the records, but we have done it in the past, and
So
we can do it in this case if this lot isn't really jurisdictional.
So with that, I'll offer a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for this particular property.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded to issue the certificate for, I believe is it lot 127?
Yes.
2080 Way, lot 127 on the plan. Any more discussion?
No.
Oh, I actually would just like to add that it would be a partial certificate.
This is a partial.
Correct.
Yes. It'll be written as such on the form.
Sure.
Do they have a form for that yet, for a partial?
Yeah, so I think it's just another box that you check off that it's a
Okay,
partial.
Great. We used to have to type it on the top.
Oh.
Back in the old days. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And moving to the last, not exactly the last, but this is the next issue is an enforcement order at Camelot Court, care of Sutton Management Company of North Andover, Mass. The location of the violation was 339 to 355 Pawtucket Boulevard, paving in the floodplain without a permit. Good
Yes.
evening. Could you introduce
Good evening.
yourself, please?
My name is Billy Brox. I'm the owner of PaveX Inc., and I was contracted to pave this lot.
Who's in charge of getting permits for that? The paving
Myself.
company or the management company?
Myself.
And
So let me explain what happened. Sutton Management asked me to go look at this property and give them an estimate on paving the part of the parking lot. I went and looked at it and said to them, well, I know it's in a floodplain. I've been paving in this town for 30 years. And I said, I have to go to see engineering to see if this is feasible. So I went to engineering and I talked to Joe Cady. And I said, Joe, I want to mill out 1.5 inches of the existing parking lot and repave with 1.5 inches. And he said, that is doable in this floodplain area. And you need to get a permit, which I knew I needed to get a permit. So I went back and I drew up a contract with Sutton Management to do the job. Unfortunately, time expired and I literally forgot to get the permit. I don't know what else to say, but I just forgot to get the permit. We went ahead and did the job. I realize elevation is the issue, so I have my contract here, and I have my tonnage for what I put down, and I paved 1,658 square yards, and I used 139 tons of mix.
Could you give me the square yardage again? What was the square yardage?
You can have this if you want.
Okay, but what was it again? I'm sorry, 1,000?
1,658 square yards.
Okay.
Also, there's one catch basin in the parking lot that we did not adjust, and we left the existing berm. There's a berm, Cape Cod berm is in the perimeter of the parking lot, and we milled approximately an inch to it, or up to it. So it kind of shows that we maintain the same grade that was existing. And I realized this was unprofessional of me, and I simply forgot to get the forgot to keep the process going.
Well, it's not only the permit from the building department, it's the permit from the Conservation Commission.
Right, and it didn't allow you people a chance to review what we were doing.
What happens to the material that you mill off?
The material I milled off is at 635 Lowell Street, Methuen,
And,
stockpiled.
and how many square yards was that?
1,658.
And that, you put down exactly the number of square yards that you took off, is that what you're saying?
I milled that surface 1,600 square yards roughly. I milled it 1.5 inches thick, deep. And it equates to 139 tons that went back in place.
So you weigh it on the way back, you measure it by yards on the way to the site, and then...
Right, well...
No, opposite. The tons come in.
The tons coming in equates to the yardage. So in other words, if you took 1,658 square yards, multiplied it by 0.056, which is the weight of the asphalt for every square yard at 1 inch, and then multiplied it by 1.5 inches, you'd come up with 139 tons. And this is the documentation to prove it.
Can we take a look at that, please?
Here's the this is the calculation. This is the contract, and these are the mix slips. There are 6 loads.
You're an asphalt expert.
So you're saying you took off 1.5 inches, you put back 1.5 inches?
Yes.
And you didn't even raise catch basins?
No. And
The footprint's basically
the
the same.
footprint's the same.
And the depth is the
Could I
same.
use your pen, please? So this is the Cape Cod berm. Oops. All right, so it's a 6-inch berm. We milled right to the face of it. So if you went down there now, the berm is still existing, and we didn't remove it. So we basically milled off 1.5 inches and put 1.5 inches back.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm throwing myself on the sword here. I really don't want to be here. I'd rather have done it in a more professional way, to be honest with you. Because this is just nothing but stuff I don't need.
You know, I mean, the scale of this
And even
project.
you.
No, the scale of this project, I mean, you just heard what we just approved with a -3 determination because, you know, it's
Yeah, and-
like replacing.
And the same issue exists there, is that it's not it's, the whole parking lot is falling apart, and it's really a safety hazard.
Yeah, you bettered it. Yeah. And you didn't, you didn't increase the layout or the
No,
foot.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
The existing berm is there. The existing curbing is there, so
There.
it limits
the area.
the area that
Yeah.
we do.
Well, working in Pawtucketville without a permit is a very dangerous thing because we have so many people that make phone calls back and forth when this happens.
And I know, I've done the 2 apartment buildings down there, I know, and I respect you guys, and I'm not, I just,
I know, we've
I forgot.
had pavement taken out down there on several occasions
Yeah.
too,
Well, we
so.
just talked, the first project tonight was a project that had pavement taken out.
right, and that's why I went to engineering first.
Yeah.
To say, what can they do?
All right, so Patrick, right, what we have now is an open enforcement order. It hasn't been ratified, I'm assuming, correct?
Yeah, it would still have to be ratified by the commission.
So I'm wondering, food for thought for my fellow commission members, could we ratify the order and then in light of the conversation we just had, agree to rescind the order and not have to go through an RDA, after the fact? Does that make sense?
I mean, I think if you're comfortable with it, then yes.
Yeah, they don't always have to go through the permitting
Yeah.
process.
So
Yeah.
I, for one, would advocate and propose we ratify the enforcement order and then use the recorded, meeting and the documentation presented as evidence that, that had an RDA been filed, we probably would have found this to be a -3 determination. And therefore, I would say, in light of the evidence presented, rescind the order. And that way we have the enforcement order documented, ratified, closed out.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion. It's a long-winded motion.
Is there a second on that?
I'll second that.
Could we have a copy of that
Yeah.
for the office? No, we don't want your original.
No, this is a copy.
Okay, and Patrick can put this on file.
Yeah, and that along with the meeting minutes show that we weren't arbitrary. So we got a first and a second, Louisa.
What is this, each load gets a slip?
It's a loading slip. Huh?
Unfortunately, I forgot my glasses, but let me. I'm over here fighting for my life with no
Nope, you're good.
glasses.
You don't need them for driving, please tell me that.
No, I don't.
All right.
Yeah,
You're good. Yeah. Do you need a ride home? I'm going to Drake it.
well, at least you can see the colors.
Okay, so. I'll put them back in order.
Your brother didn't remind you to get a permit over there? No, I'm just kidding.
No,
I saw Brock's on the
No,
thing.
you know what? Believe me, this isn't the way I wanted to do it. I would have rather gone through the process.
Well, if they call you again, I think they're in charge of both sides of Camelot now.
Yes.
If they call you again, you'd be the perfect one because you'll get the permit right away.
Okay.
Do you want me to look at that and see if it's all Pawtucket Boulevard or something?
Yeah, well, what I want to try to point out is the loads. Up here you have the net weight of the load, and down here you have the totals as they come in. Okay, so there was 6 loads, and the date and time is here, so you know what we're there. And you can have that, and that's the calculations for the materials,
Oh,
all right?
got good paperwork.
Well,
We would have liked.
I'm missing the biggest paper. But anyway, thank you, I'm sorry, and,
Yeah, well, we haven't voted on this yet. Don't thank us yet, we haven't voted
oh,
yet.
yeah, okay, let me go back over here.
Okay, we have a motion made and seconded to ratify the, can we take them in two parts here? Ratify the order. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And now,
I'll make a motion to rescind the order.
motion to rescind, seconded by
I'll second that
Kevin.
motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Well,
Okay,
thank you
now-
very much.
Now you're honest. Thank you.
Thank you.
The only other thing on our agenda is the 2019 meeting schedule. And we got a copy of that by email. It's the second, I think they're all Wednesdays, 2nd and 4th, are they not?
Yep.
The only one I thought what might be missing was Christmas week. We don't seem to have a meeting that week.
Yeah, so we typically only do one meeting in December
It was
for all
what?
the land use boards.
Do we ever do one meeting in the summer months, like the rest of the Concom's in the area?
That's actually our busiest time, is the summer.
But it's also our
I like that suggestion. Caitlin.
struggle for quorum time as well,
Well, we're going to get another member, and we are not going to struggle anymore.
right?
I do want to know, because I just noticed it, was that the 27th of 2019 is the day before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that's a no.
Is that the day before Thanksgiving?
Yeah.
Oh, that's,
Yeah, that
no,
should be-
let's eliminate
I
that
think we've
one.
done that before, we've
Right.
eliminated that one.
Yeah,
I remember last time it was the opposite, where we realized.
yeah, I think that's a no quorum night right there.
Okay.
And all the other boards also meet twice during the summer, just curious?
The ZBA does, they meet twice, the planning board does meet once.
Well, unfortunately, we have to keep all our meeting dates because half of them we can't seem to get a quorum, so
But maybe if we just
we've
had
got to
one,
keep
we
trying.
make it a point. All right, our chair is bullying us. I will drop the, drop the motion.
So was someone offer a motion to accept the schedule?
I will make a motion to accept the schedule with the change of deleting the November 27th meeting.
And I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded to eliminate November 27th meeting in 2019, otherwise accept the schedule as printed. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. That's the end of our agenda as I know it. Is there anything else, Patrick?
Top of my head, there's 2 new RDAs that will be on the agenda next meeting, along with the continued market basket.
Right.
I think
Okay.
that's all I can remember right now.
So then I'll offer a motion
All
to
right.
adjourn.
Motion made to adjourn,
I'll second.
seconded, and all those in favor.
Aye.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.